Now, usually this is a point at which we would introduce this month's provocateur. But what makes this CLC so different is that we don't have one. I know I'm the one that's currently talking, but the provocateur today is you. This entire session is about you and your conscious leadership journey. Together, we will travel through the past, present, and future of your journey, and more specifically, identify conscious leadership cultures that has enabled you to be a conscious leader. Now, you may have heard that the theme for this year's summit is cultivating conscious leadership cultures. Well, what does that mean to you? This is what ChatGPT says in response to our theme. As I read through it, I'd like to encourage you all to respond by annotating the screen. Perhaps you'd like to underline keywords or stamp a heart on what resonates with you most. Or if you'd like, you could type up your response in the chat box. So here is what ChatGPT says. A conscious leadership culture is characterized by leaders who are self-aware, empathetic, and focused on the well-being of their teams and broader community. It involves values such as transparency, integrity, and inclusivity, as well as a commitment to personal and collective growth. In such a culture, decision-making is guided by ethical considerations, and there's an emphasis on collaboration, learning, and adaptability. I'm going to give you all a few minutes to respond to that, again, through writing things on the chat or by clicking the annotation function. And you can underline things or put a heart to things that you think is important to you, something that you think that we should focus on, keywords that stand out. I'll read some comments from the chat. I see Anne wrote, find it hard to be truly self-aware as I am swimming in my own fishbowl. What else jumps out at you? Karina wrote, many of the words included can fall under well-being. Mark says, paraphrased, a leader established relationships, then uses those relationships to achieve common goals, by James McGregor Burns. Thank you all for your responses. You can continue to do that. And I'd like to invite you to keep this in mind. All of the keywords that you've pointed out, keep this in mind as we go out into our breakout groups. What we'll do today is we'll have 3 rounds of discussion. So 10 minutes of discussion within our groups, and then 5 minutes where we'll come together to share some highlights. In the first round, we will focus on the past. And the second, the present. And then the last, the future. Now, you will stay in the same group throughout the session so that you can create deeper connection and understanding of each other's conscious leadership journeys. Now, as you see here, I will put up a few questions on the screen as prompts, but please do not feel like you must only stick to these questions or that you have to answer them all. I'll also share a link where you can open it up and see all of the questions, and there's space for you to write down your thoughts and notes from your discussions. So let me share that with you in the chat. And let's jump into our very first round, and that is the past. So take this opportunity to reflect and share about your conscious leadership journey in the past, all the way until where you are now. So when did you realize the importance of conscious leadership? Did you realize this yet? What made you realize it's important? And what has enabled you to be a conscious leader in the past? And what might have been a barrier? All right, welcome back, everyone. We have a few minutes now to share with a bigger group. If you have something that you'd like to share, some highlights from your discussion um, regarding the past. And if you haven't already, if you see in the chat, I've shared the Canva link. You can go on there, and on the second slide, you can add your own notes, some thoughts that you have. But in the meantime, would anyone like to share some highlights from their group discussion?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
So I was talking about how we talked some about how generations of leadership makes a difference, that leadership has morphed over time. And so conscious leadership and leadership that allowed for women to be more in leadership really wasn't available in earlier generations for some of those of us who are older. And we're hoping that things have changed.
Very nice, and thank you. Any other thoughts or comments?
I can jump in. I was going to say, one of the ahas I had in our group was, and this speaks to conscious leadership itself, is we all came to it from very different angles, very different perspectives, and at very different times in our lives in terms of an idea, and also how it percolated in each of our lives in different ways. And so I think that's, understanding that and remembering that was an interesting part of our conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Michelle. Well, with that, we're going to shift onto the second part of the second round of discussion, and now we're focusing in on the present. So this time, reflect on where you are today. And this could be where you are in your career or perhaps studies, in your communities or social circles, in any organization or team that you're a part of. So what enables you to be more of a conscious leader today? And what has been critical in ensuring it? Some people at the start underlined well-being and focused on that. What other things or what other aspects have been critical in ensuring that you could be more of a conscious leader? And what is aiding you, or what might be a barrier in your journey? These are some prompts that you can think about. And I'll send you back into your breakout rooms again with the same group of people for you to move on to this next part of the journey. Well, would you like to share something with us now?
Well, I was thinking about self-awareness when we talk about the present, because I was in a conference for the last 14 days in Kigali, Rwanda. So it is about how we connect to our true value so that we can be authentic enough, so that we can be true to ourselves, is one of the theme that I was about to share to you.
Very nice. It's very important. Oh. Would you like to elaborate on that? Would anyone else like to share some highlights from their conversation regarding the present?
I can share. This is Stephanie. Something I shared in our group, and speaking to what enables us to be more of conscious leader, and I was sharing in a lot of the work in groups I'm a part of. It's rooted in the quality of listening that we are able to embody and hold as people and leaders, for whether it's one person or many people, a team, a group. And that's a skill. It's not something that I think many of our fellow colleagues or teammates, especially at work, it's, and that is the work to be done. But, for me as a leader, I choose every day in an intentional way to do my best to show up in that way from an empathic listening space, and also hold space in that way when I'm facilitating groups, or even engaging with my own children and family members. So I think that's a foundational component to conscious leadership and how we move it forward.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think what's interesting from the two comments that we heard just now is, if we take it back to the start of the session when we're looking at the ChatGPT response to our summit theme, the first line is conscious leadership culture is characterized by leaders who are self-aware and empathetic. And those are the two things that you've touched on just now in the past few minutes in the response to the highlights. And I think this just goes to show not only not just the truth in what we read before in that description or the summary that ChatGPT gave us, but also we're able to see what it looks like for Stephanie, what it looks like when you went to that conference and you're able to ponder on the question of how do we commit to our true value. And it touches on so many of these different things that we encounter every day when we go to work or when we're with our teams and organizations. So that's very great to hear. And so now we are moving on to the last round of discussion. And this time we'll be talking about the future. And so look ahead at what you want to be and where you want to go in your conscious leadership journeys. And ask what is needed to create a conscious leadership culture. What tools or resources could you use to ensure it? And what might aid you or be a barrier in your journey? It might be interesting to see how people from different backgrounds view this differently and how they have different tools or different resources that they use. And this might be a good opportunity to share those tools and share what you think would be something important and something that we should focus on moving forward. So for the last 10 minutes in your group discussions, I will invite you to think about that. All right, welcome back, everyone. We still have a few minutes left until the end of this session, but would anyone like to share about this last round of discussion?
Well, we talked about one of the qualities that's needed for conscious leadership culture is listening. We felt that was really important in a lot of ways.
Great, we heard this in the present segment, and now again in the future. Anything else?
I think that one thing that our group at the end came to almost by default in agreement with, and welcome, Josh. It was good to meet you from San Francisco area. We all agreed that the culture probably needs to be defined, and there needs to be a partnership of alignment so that an organization, public, private, for-profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter, that there needs to be an alignment of purpose, an alignment of subcultures to the bigger culture so that there's no contradictions. It gives people the opportunity to be able to connect to the culture that the organization is trying to drive. And that's such a great recruitment tool also. But we also agreed that that's time consuming to go in and either define or redefine or change an organization's existing culture. It's not a quick fix. So moving from, unconscious leadership to conscious leadership and creating this alignment of purpose and connecting it to a culture, while it's important to start with an alignment of purpose and culture, it is an investment in time, energy, frustration, money, all of the above. So we collectively need to figure out how to not make this a quick fix approach, because it doesn't work that way.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Charlie. Are there no other comments? I just wanted to invite you all to continue to populate that Canva deck with any thoughts that you may have regarding the three discussions that we've had today. And I will be sharing that with you all so you can look through it. And I really hope that this session helped you in having a better understanding of where you are in your conscious leadership journey, but also to give you perhaps some clarity on what tools and what's important when it comes to moving forward in your journey and how to cultivate conscious leadership cultures. Now, this video will be posted on YouTube, and so you can use this as an exercise perhaps in your teams and your organizations. And we hope that you're able to carry on the conversation that we had today. And hopefully we can see you at the next CLC.